Hey guys, Hakuna Matata here to bring you an analytical breakdown of the Luxury Championship Series 8 that concluded over the past weekend. I'll be going over some numbers related to top cut in the event, including the most commonly played hand traps and staples. Now if you like these kind of videos, make sure to subscribe to the Luxury Gaming YouTube channel and also check out my own personal channel for other data related Yu-Gi-Oh videos, and that will show me that you guys like this type of content and I can continue to bring these kind of videos for Luxury Gaming. I'll provide all the links below. Lastly, before I begin, a big shout out to our sponsors MetaMats, YGO Daily, and Imperial Gaming and Collectibles for their support for the LCS. I will also have all of their links down below. Alright now, let's just get started. Now most of you will have seen this deck breakdown already, but to reiterate, we saw a lot of virtual world decks being played in this tournament, a VFD turbo deck that I think may have caught many players by surprise, a lot of Zodiac variants as well, and a good representation from Prank Kids 2. And of course, a lot of representation from Dragon Link and Infernal Knight as usual. Now I was a bit surprised that there were only 5 Buster Blader decks in the tournament, considering it seemed like it was becoming a really popular deck. And then in the other category, you had decks like Altergeist, Grand Maju, Adamancipator, Mech Knights, Melfi Tribrigade, and Salamangrades, and a bunch of other decks where there were only one of each. Now once we move on to the top 16, we still see a ton of virtual world here, taking up almost half of the top cut. And if you look at it by conversion rate, calculated by the proportion of a specific deck making the top cut, over 30% of virtual world decks made it to top cut, which is pretty insane. And Zodiac had a pretty good conversion rate as well at just under 14%. And then we have the remaining decks at below 10% conversion rate. So before we move on to the top bracket, just thought I'd quickly lay out where the top cut contestants are from. So the majority are from Brazil with 4 players, followed by the US and Germany with 3 players each. And then we had 1 player each from Argentina, Ireland, Italy, UK, Austria, and Croatia. So a lot of diversity in this game and it's good to see it. So now this was the challenge bracket for the LCS 8 top cut, and I'll leave it here and you can just pause it to take a closer look. Now keep in mind that the 2-0 just indicates that the player won the match. It wasn't the case where everyone just 2-0'd each other in the match. Now I suppose to summarize just from the top 4, at this point they were all virtual world decks, except for the one Infernal Knight that was piloted by Cameron Neal. And then in the finals, we did have a virtual world mirror between Pac and Gabriel Nets, which Gabriel ultimately won and became, I believe, the first back-to-back LCS champion. So big congrats to Gabriel, but also to everyone in the tournament. Alright, so now let's move on to the most commonly played hand traps. First, a quick overview of the numbers. I thought I'd just map out the median number of hand traps in the main deck for each deck. Now of course, some decks like Dogmatica Invoke Shaddoll and Dinos only had 1 deck to work with, so keep that in mind. So we see that Zodiac had a median of 14 hand traps in the main, and Virtual World actually only had about 6 in the main. And Infernal Knights of course had the lowest, with Cameron Neal actually not playing any in the main deck. And if you look at it across all decks in the top cut, then the hand trap count ranged from 0 to 15 cards with a median of 6 cards, and this is definitely lower than in the previous LCS, where the median number of hand traps was 9. And in terms of the proportion of hand traps relative to their main deck size, it ranged from 0 to 36% with a median of 15%. Okay, so let's just go over the top 10 most commonly played hand traps in top cut, and then we can also cover the top 10 most staples as well. So unsurprisingly, we have Nibiru and Ashe being played in all 16 decks in top cut. To interpret the graphic here, for Nibiru, this means that 7 decks play Nibiru in the main and 9 decks play Nibiru in the side. So keep that in mind. Dark blue means main deck, light blue means side deck. Now for Nibiru, this is interesting because compared to the last couple LCSs, Nibiru is being delegated more to the side than before. As for Ashe, the reason why I have this little asterisk here is because one virtual world deck played 2 Ashe in the main and 1 Ashe in the side, so for the purpose of this graphic, I just categorize that as Ashe in the main deck, just so I don't double count things. And then you have Cyframe Gear Gamma and Imperm being the next most commonly played hand traps, which again has been the same trend as the previous LCS events. And Token Collector makes it to the top 5 this time though, with 4 virtual world decks playing this in the side, and the other deck that played this in the side were Dinos, Zodiac, Infernal, and Dragon Link. And then we have Lancia, which was seen in 6 of the 16 decks and all in the side. Definitely a lot less representation than the previous LCS. Perhaps people didn't expect as many Dino decks in this event and adjusted accordingly. We also have DD Crow and Ghost Ogre seen among 5 of 16 decks, and Skullmeister was actually seen in a quarter of the top 16 decks as well, being seen in all 3 of the Zodiac decks and also in Dinos. And then we also have the 3 no materials, all of them in Virtual World decks. Alright, so finally, let's move on to the 10 most commonly played staples in Top Cut. Now I should note that I didn't include draw cards like Pod of Desires or Upstart Goblin here, just because those are cards that are only played in the main, and I wanted to only include cards that were more so considered side deck options but could also be played in the main deck. Anyways, we have once again Harpy's Feather Duster being the most commonly played staple, with one Zodiac deck actually main decking this card. We saw a lot of Twin Twisters as additional back row hate this time around, with 11 decks playing it all in the side. A lot of triple Toxic's talent as well, being main decked in all of them except for one Dragon Link deck. They were primarily played in the Virtual World decks, but an Infernoble deck and Dogmatic Invoke Shaddoll also played this card. Then we have Red Reboot at 7 decks, all in the side, not too surprising there. And then Dino Wrestler Pankratops, on the other hand, didn't see as much play as before, with 2 decks main decking this card, one of course being the Dino, but the other being Zodiac. Lastly, on to numbers 6 to 10, we have Imperial Order seen in 6 decks, 4 of them in Virtual World and 2 of them in Zodiac decks, and it was the Zodiac deck that main decked this card. And then we also see a bit of Call by the Grave, and also 5 decks played Skill Drain, all of them by Virtual World. And then we have Cosmic Cyclone as the less popular back row hate, and then finally Ice Dragon's Prison seen in 3 decks, the 1 Dogmatic Invoke Shaddoll and 2 Zodiac decks. So this card didn't see as much play as before with the last LCS. Anyways guys, that's it for the analytical breakdown of the Luxury Championship Series 8. Hope you found that useful. If you did, again, if you could subscribe to this channel and also my own personal channel, that would be greatly appreciated. That's it from me guys, and I'll see you after LCS 9. Take care.